Okay, so if you guys are ready for me, I'll give a 60-second intro for the ones of you I have not met. My name is Leo Pareja. I'm one of the co-founders of the company. We've been around for 6 years. Our goal is to make the agent be the center of the transaction by giving them more data and being able to provide better service for their customers. This was not designed to disrupt any specific piece of technology. My co-founder and I were practitioners who just wanted better tools. And so we decided to go out and build them. So right here, I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. Okay, so I'll be showing you basically 2 separate modules today. I will be spending the vast majority on Remine Pro, and then I'll show our Ad Edit, which is a separate module towards the end. But just to take it from the top, Remine Pro is a public record and alternative front-end system all in one. So depending on the systems that you may be used to, that is CoreLogic, Matrix and Realist, or Paragon with CRS, or any combination thereof, whether it's Flex or Rapatoni. Our primary system, Remine Pro, you get to it through logging in through SSO. So whatever SSO provider you use, like a Clarity, MMSI, or a homegrown system, we can be deep linked into any one of those systems. We've done it in multiple markets, whether it is a Matrix, Flex, Paragon, Rapatoni system throughout the application. It can also be a complete standalone system. In a lot of markets, it sits side by side, and eventually over time, they start sunsetting other products. But when you log in, you land on this daily page, which is our home screen. It is very customizable. You can add as many of these cards as much as you would want, where you can customize things. So for example, my listings is pretty self-explanatory. It's being driven by the by the member's MLS ID. Then listing updates, you can add as many of these as you want based on a zip code, and then adjust the frequency to daily, weekly, monthly, and then with Market Pulse again. So kind of the activity in a marketplace, you can do the whole market, or you could do a specific zip code that you may be looking for. And again, an individual agent can add or subtract as many of these cards as they would like to have and duplicate them. Now, as you move along through the left-hand navigation bar, you will see that our application is very much map-based. I'm actually going to take you through a specific property to really show you the amount of different data sets you have. And then I'll be going back to the map and showing you all of the functionality and all of the different search capabilities we have inside the property. But with that said, as I said, we have a very simple left-hand navigation bar. We have a toggle here between listing and properties. Listing is just purely MLS active listing, so actives under contract sold, and then properties would be public record as well. Inside of the properties, when you'll see these layers, which I'll explain in detail, and then the search bar, which is a very powerful search bar, and we follow what's called fuzzy logic, meaning that you can almost talk to it in natural language. It auto completes and provides you a bunch of different examples. So let me just start with one property, and then I'll dive deep into it. So as I'm typing here, I'm looking for a very specific property. And one of the things we would do is localize the search to your primary market. That's completely dictated and your selection. You can pick the whole state. You can pick 6 counties. You can pick 10 counties. That is 100% your choice by business rules. All that does is localize the search as the default search. So for example, I'm looking for a house I sold in Virginia prior to moving to Florida, where I live right now in Miami. And when I type in 1105 Lincoln Avenue, everything that's being suggested is inside of Bright MLS's primary search area. And I'm in Bright MLS because I'm actually still a dues paying active broker of that market. That's where I grew up selling real estate. And so it's suggesting properties in Pennsylvania and Virginia. Their primary search market is from southern New Jersey to the middle of Virginia across 4 states. Now, if I were to select a nationwide search, the closest suggested properties actually in Florida, closest to me. So one of the really neat things about Remine that people actually really enjoy is that every instance of Remine Pro includes a nationwide data set. And when I go through and show you the specificity of the different data sets we have, just understand that we have this and provide this to you across all 50 states, 150 million some parcels across asset classes. So this is not just residential data that we have in here, it's also commercial land and everything else. The detail and specificity is always designed around Resi because we're a Resi product, but If you find a commercial property, it'll show you basically all the commercial fields that we pull from the public record. So I was looking for a property specifically. I chose to fly to it on the map by saying show on the map. I could have just clicked on property details and gone directly to the property card. But if I wanted to see it on the map, I could do so. The first thing I'll point out is that we have a geocentroid on every single property, which is a fancy word for just a dot on the map. And then we have boundary lines that show you the outlines of the property. That becomes way more specific when we're doing visual searches. So I'm going to open that property card real quick and actually walk you through all the different information that we've had inside of a property detail card. So I picked this property because it's a property that I have, so I can give you a little bit of the history of it, but more importantly, because it has both MLS and public record. So this default is the previous transaction on it. So the last listing in it. These photos are being powered by the primary database in this market, which is a matrix database. It could pull from any database. And then all of this is being pumped in from the matrix database. So the disclosures, the agent remarks, the public remarks, the showing remarks, and we just display it with contemporary design, meaning that this is dynamic and it responds in real time. One of the things I like to point out is when you're looking at it, if you guys had multiple MLS feeds from a neighboring market or you did data shares, we actually show you the originating system that's populating that one specific property. And then also some people will look at this display and say, hey, I think you have less fields than my Matrix, Paragon, Flex, Rapatoni system. And we actually point out the fact that we have what's called a dynamic display, meaning if there's an empty field, we actually don't display empty fields because there's nothing to show there. Now, from here on down, this is the data assets that Remine collects. There's about 25 different disparate data sets that we collect and aggregate, conflate, display for an agent's use. So simple things like just public record information and who's on title, but then we bring in parcel boundary information, flood risk information from FEMA directly, location on a map, street view from Google. And as you scroll down, this is all the public record information you would typically find on either a competitive public record system and or a county website. As you scroll, we'll point out some things that we do uniquely. Like for example, we will grab the mortgage information, grab the original mortgage balance, the start of the mortgage, assume a 30-year fixed mortgage, and then we create an estimate based on that 30-year amortization. So statistically, we're probably in the 90-some percentile of accuracy because the average American does not make significant principal paydowns, and we don't have access to principal paydowns as that is private information. But on a couple of my own properties, we've been off by like $1,500. And when I talk to agents, they're pleasantly surprised by how accurate that loan balance estimate. Again, the tool is designed to make the agent be at the center of the transaction. So if someone were to call you and ask you to come to a listing appointment last minute, you could get a pretty quick indicator of what the potential mortgage balance would be. We're also extremely transparent about how we make all of our quote unquote secret sauce or how we make the sausage. And I'll tell you right now, if somebody just has a line of credit on a property, like I have on some of my rental properties, we're going to be vastly off because we're just assuming a fully amortized loan. So if someone is using it, as an investment, paying it down, pulling the money out as they see fit, we're going to be way off. But on a traditional mortgage, we're remarkably close. Anytime you see a little question mark, it's a little pop-up window. These pop-up windows, I can almost give you the story on each one. This was actually a suggestion by Niren outside of MLS Pin up there in the Northeast. They wanted, that estimate. They're like, where does that come from? And so that's a good one. We should point that out. So wherever there's a question mark, it's probably where someone's asked us a question and we added the explainer bubble. Right below, we're bringing tax information, assessed information, and even a historic on AVMs. The property history is literally why I started the company. We wanted as much clarity into having all the information necessary without having to jump back into different systems, meaning like my MLS and or a tax assessor website. The property I'm displaying is a property I had as a primary residence. And the reason I show it is because it's pretty unique in the sense that it's got a lot of story points to tell. So in this property, I bought a double lot, I subdivided. That's the beginning of time of this lot. I then put it in my wife and I's name. You can see that I did the subdivision with a gift deed. Then I did a general warranty deed in order to transfer to our personal names. We had a couple of kids. A couple of years later, we put into family trust. And when we choose to relocate to Florida, we actually listed it in the MLS. So this is public record data out of the courthouse. This is MLS information. So you have the MLS ID, the list price, the close price, the day we flipped it to sold on the MLS when our listing agent sold it. And then you can actually see that 48 hours later, it recorded at the county courthouse. So this information is being powered by our APIs into the courthouses. So this is very typical type of time lapse between a closing and recordation in Fairfax County, Virginia, because they have electronic recordation. Now, if this was 8 miles east over the Potomac River, this could take 6 to 8 weeks in Prince George's County and Montgomery County. So in one place, you have a lot of information. The next thing you see is the mortgage history, which is exactly like the real estate history, but just on the mortgage side, specifically for that property. So this property was distressed. I bought it with private capital. I then did new construction financing. And then right afterwards, I did a rate and term refinance. And then you can see that the current owner bought it with a purchase money mortgage, and it's flagged as active. Active for us means that we saw a mortgage be opened and we haven't seen one closed. And that is where that information comes from. Right below it, you see the value, the school information. I was going to glaze right over it. We get our school information from niche.com. Anytime you see a logo inside of our application, again, we're very, very transparent on where we buy data and how we calculate stuff. If you click on niche.com, it takes you directly to Niche's website. Niche.com is one of the top 2 school information providers. The other one would be greatschools.org. Niche had a better API, and that's actually how we picked it. But it's embedded and displayed right there. And if you ever want to go to it, you can go directly to the source of where we get our data. The next section is the valuation. And depending on how many times you've seen this demo and how many times you've seen us adjust it, it updates all the time. So we started with purely one AVM, and then over time, we've tried to acquire as many as we can get our hands on. The whole point is, if you're going to a listing presentation and you have a number ready to present, and your seller is got a different number in their head and it's probably substantially higher or lower than yours, you just have a good indicator of the potential numbers that you need to either defend or discuss with your potential customer. If you scroll down further, you'll see demographic information. This is down to a ZIP+4 resolution. So think about as it could be as little as 10 houses on one side of the street and 1 floor of an apartment building. This is not property level data. It is anonymized at the ZIP+4 resolution. And then the last part that we do that's pretty neat is we'll show you who is on title, like everybody else would in public record. But if it's got a blue highlight, that means we have a consumer file as well. So you can actually open that card up. Contact information, if available, is there. When we show you how to prospect, I will show you all where that would be exported, but we include cell phone numbers and emails when available. And also, if we find a consumer profile that's separate from who's on title, we'll actually display it as well. So on my current residence, it's titled in my family trust, but my name actually pops up right next to the property card with my current cell phone number. So this is a really good example of all the different fields that are available inside a particular property record. And again, I did specify that you guys have access to public record nationwide. You would only have MLS data for your MLS database. So there is no commingling of MLS data. We keep separate databases for each instance. If you guys chose to do a data share and it came through in your data share in your feed to us, we would display that, but you are the keepers of all of that data. And you guys are the ones who decide what gets presented and not presented to anybody else. There is no public version of this website, and there is no commingled version of the data. Now, I will show you how you can share that with a customer. So just like every other system that you may be familiar with, you can type in an email address, a short message, and hit send, and they will receive an email with a link that takes them to our interpretation of IDX data, which I'll show in detail. You can also copy that link, send it via text, WhatsApp, Instagram, however you like to communicate with folks. You can save this property to a cart, which I will do at a different time in the demo to show you all the full and functionality. You can create what we call a two-click CMA. So you would select that CMA that you want to do a CMA. We have some default functions as to what you could do there. You could set the priorities on radius and everything else. You can run that search. You select the properties that you see fit, exclude the ones you don't. And then from here, we preload the national brands, obviously prior to launch. If you have a large independent that you guys feel strongly about being as a default, we can do that. But you can also do customizations. I was a KW agent for 15 years. So I would hit save and continue. And in 2 clicks, I got a full CMA that's digital, and I can create a printed version that is a PDF that you can also email to a customer or print out, and it's ready to go for your customers' wants and needs. So any questions so far? I am speaking rather quickly because I want to make sure I have a very specific agenda in front of me that I want to make sure I hit for everybody. Any questions so far? And this is what that CMA looks like. I'm going to pause right there for 1 second, catch my breath. Let me take a sip of water.
I've got a question. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, I'm looking at the valuation section under a property, and under one of the sources, it says estimate rental. Oh, excuse me. Is that just showing you what this estimate rental would be, or is that actually one of the sources that's pulling in all the averages?
No, so the Zestimate is the Zestimate is the Zestimate. The Zestimate rental is a separate product that they rolled out not that long ago that predicts the rental for the property.
Okay, so it's not pulling, so these are not all the sources that you're getting this average valuation from?
No, so let's go right there. So we're all talking about the same thing. So yeah, this is what First American thinks it's based on theirs, Black Knights, Redfins. Then Zestimate thinks it would sell for, somewhere in this range. And then Zestimate rental means that they're calculating with their own. This is, we get a feed from Zillow, and that's what they think the monthly rent would be for that house.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions before I move on?
Yeah, can you send a whole cart of properties to a client?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually one of my next talking points. I have a list of what I'm supposed to present to your board, and that's the client engagement through carts. It's actually a very, very powerful part of our application. Perfect. So
real quick, Leo, sorry, going backwards on the initial carts on the home screen or the daily screen. Can you put in multiple zip codes to get a market pulse on like 3 zip codes in one?
That's a great question. Not in one single cart. That is a feature that's been requested by another MLS that's in our roadmap. So currently today, you would have to have separate market pulse cards, but that's been requested and is in our roadmap.
Thank you.
Okay, so the reason I took my time explaining that property card is because that gives you an idea of the richness of the data sets we have. So on any one property across this country, we have probably as little as 60 or 70 fields of information to as much as 200. But when you actually start looking at the data visually, and this specifically is a conversation around the public record data set, I'll get to all the MLS information. This is when folks kind of really get excited about prospecting with Remine. So I said 150 million parcels. If you take the amount of data fields we have on each parcel and you add it all up, it's close to 3.5 billion. Now, when you start visualizing it, that's when it gets really fun. So I just selected an AVM filter on top of a map, and that's why those boundary maps are really important. So this little neighborhood that I'm familiar with was built in the early 30s and 40s. They were all double lots. They were about 12,000 square feet. They were all double lots by zoning, by right, so you didn't actually need to do anything specific. But over time, especially in the last 10 years, these were all torn down and built 2 homes. There's actually one single holdout that I used to drive past, and these 2 that don't have not enough lot frontage. So visually, you can get a really good idea of what's going on in an area. This is a home equity map overlay. So we have a prediction about the mortgage balance as well as the AVM. So I have 2 favorite filters. This is one of them. This is length of ownership. So something as common as what we were taught as realtors, that the average American moves every 7 years. It's slipped over to 9 years over the last 10 years. But that's actually a perfect example of an average. The average homeowner or renter stays in a neighborhood more specifically based on the type of housing it is. So in a move-up neighborhood that's a condo or a townhouse, it might turn every 4 years because, you know, two humans cohabitate, make little humans, they need more space. And then there's some larger single-family home neighborhoods where you buy as much as you can afford so they can go to the right school. And then eventually you don't move out until you're empty nester. So those neighborhoods might take 15 years. This functionality allows you to look at it visually, get a really good idea of what it is you're looking for. And I'll do an example where you're just grabbing properties and taking them somewhere. So the next filter is a cell score. This is a predictive algorithm, no different than SmartZip offers or First.io. We built this when we first built our company because that was the flavor du jour back then. This is an educated guess. We use about the 6 ingredients you would expect, like how long have they owned it, equity, are they married, all that kind of fun stuff. And then we take a guess. Low means less than probably a probability to buy, sell in the next 24 months. Medium is 18 months. We think high is probability of selling in the next 12 months. Our statistical model says that's 3.8 times higher than a random guess. I actually still don't know what that means, but it compares to what other predictive algorithms do in the marketplace. I'm not too crazy about that one. I think it's far more interesting to use things like our absentee filter coupled with our time of ownership filter. So this is one where we show you how is title being held visually, and you can do searches that way. Corporate for us is defined as LLC, C Corp, S Corp, as well as trust, because it could be a family trust like mine, which is basically still owner occupied, but it could also be a family trust for asset structuring. Owner occupant is a human being that lives there and receives their tax bill, and according to the county, they check that they're owner occupant. Absentee in-state is an absentee owner human who receives their mail at a different address, an absentee human owner that receives their mail out of state. And then from here, we have a whole bunch of other ones like building type, land use type, mortgage rate, mortgage age, distress, cash buyers. But let me actually start walking through a use case on how people prospect. So I'll come back to the search bar in a minute, and I do know I have plenty of time, but I want to make sure I cover everything. You could search by zip code, by city, by school boundary, right inside the search bar, and we will generate the polygons for you. But just for the sake of the demo, let me just actually draw a quick polygon, and let's just assume that this is the area that you're interested in looking in for X, Y, Z and reason, right? Proximity to work, proximity to mass transportation, whatever it is. So I just selected 119 properties. I can then go to length of ownership and say, show me everyone who's been on title more than 10 years. Do you guys keep hearing that noise? I think that's my connection to my monitor. Give me 1 second. I'm not disconnecting my computer. I'm just, I think my display.
Thanks, Leo.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
I got you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think my my hub was running low, and in that case, it was cutting in and out, so I was losing my mouse. Okay, can you guys still hear me? I'll go right back to where I was. I just needed to disconnect my monitors.
Yes.
Perfect. Sorry about that. So I selected these 119 properties, and then I said, show me everything who's been on title more than 10 years. 119 properties became 22 results right away. From here, I could make sure that they're owner occupied, right? By applying a second filter, those 22 properties became 16 properties. I can continue refining this list as much as I see fit. So let's say I want to say has no mortgage. Has no mortgage, drop down to 8. So that's a very specific result set. Been on property more than 10 years, has no mortgage, is an owner occupied, is in that exact same geography. So I started with 109 results, cut that down to 8. Not too many other pieces of technology that we're aware of that can do that easily without having to do a complicated export of an Excel file. I can then go to a cart, create a cart, add it to the cart real quick, and then I'm going to cart. So carts, in my explanation, is the agent workspace. There could be a lot of different reasons to use this. You could be tracking a geographic farm. You could be tracking properties for a specific buyer, like in the example, hey, I'm not in the market to move right now, but if something pops up on this lake or near my mother-in-law or near my job, I'm in the market. So this is where you would track that. But in this case, you're doing a marketing campaign, whether it's going to be direct mail campaign, whether it's going to be a cold calling campaign, whatever it is. So these 8 properties, you can actually select them all and do a print mailing label. You click a button and you're off to the races, and your PDF for labels is built. You could also do an export. You can actually select all 125 fields, or you can drill down to our most popular ones: property identification, listing information if available, legal, tax, all of the different fields that are available for your use, and you hit export. One of the neat things that the application does is work in the background. So you are not waiting around for the little icon to complete the transaction. And then one of the first agent requested features that was asked for at scale once we launched the company was a built-in mailer integration. So what we did was we went to some of the top users of the application who were asking it. We had a user group, and they recommended this company that allowed us to do a built-in mailer integration. So we're taking those 8 properties, and again, those 8 properties could be 1,000 properties, 500 properties, however many properties you need to execute on the marketing campaign of your choice, and passes those addresses over. And you can very quickly do a just listed campaign, a branded company letter campaign. You could do a handwritten note campaign as you see fit, and prepare that piece of marketing to go out for a customer. The really cool thing about this is that we are one account at this mailing company, and as the volume goes up, it buys pricing down for agents across the application. We're sending out roughly 200,000 pieces of mail collectively as realtors inside of Remine, and what that does is create a really inexpensive way to get a small batch of mail to go out. And again, if someone can chime in if they do direct mail, we've been told by agents in the field that for a small batch, meaning not a every door direct or a bulk buy, where you can target 8 properties, 22 properties, 100 properties, it's rough to or impossible to get under $1 a piece for a yellow piece of paper, red ink, postage, delivered with multicolor. So from here, you can do all kinds of really interesting stuff from prospecting. Now, a coming soon feature, which would probably be in the application before you guys could go live in implementation, if we were so lucky to partner with you guys, is called Evocalize. Evocalize is the digital leader on marketing to real estate. They're one of Facebook's biggest partners. That's why we picked them. But just like I can hit send mailer, we're going to have an Evocalize button coming soon, and you'll be able to take these addresses and create digital campaigns, retargeting campaigns, Facebook, Instagram campaigns around the subject properties using digital means. Right now, agents typically hit this download button, grab that Excel file, and go do it manually by uploading the addresses into campaign builders. But in this example, these are the fields I exported. And in addition, we have the phone numbers, and we label them do not call list and email addresses. So as I'm going through there, that is a really good display and mining of public record data. So real quick, let me just clear the deck here and click listings. So listings, this is MLS information, right? One of the things that I can do here is build my search bar to my wants and needs exactly. So again, every system is customized by the agent. So if you remove any and all filters, you don't have any preset filters, but you can change your mind, and the order you click them in creates the order right on your dashboard. So you could call this your fast bar, where you search and you don't have to go into advanced search. But if you so choose to go into advanced search, you can actually click into advanced search. And again, if you guys were to become partners of ours, part of our onboarding is selecting the fields you want displayed. So these are the default kind of Rezo top 40 fields, but we can actually put and display any of the fields that you may want. So again, for the sake of the demo, let me just go with something as simple as just active. And my computer is acting funny, which always happens while on demo, of course. Give me 1 second. All I was selecting was active properties. And then on the filter, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, draw a polygon, and grab some of those properties, because what I want to show you guys is how, just as we did with public record information, I can do this with MLS information. So I will select this polygon, but I could have selected by price, bedroom count, zip code, anything like that. So I'm going to select these 5 active properties. So label this active. And I'm going to put this into a cart. So again, we're going to the same cart workspace where I did prospecting with public record data, but now I'm using it to interact with MLS data. So I'm selecting these 5 properties. Actually, I don't have to select the properties. The gentleman who asked earlier, can I share a whole cart? Absolutely. So I would have added a person into my contacts, just like I would in Matrix, Paragon, Flex, or any other platform. And then I would just hit send. And these properties are off to the races. So the customer would receive an email inviting them to open it up inside of Remine.com. So Remine.com is our external facing version of the application to a consumer. This is not a public portal. They would have to accept and register with an agent. Once they do that, they can actually search in the application the exact same way the agent would be able to. And then if I click in there, this is a very similar consumer-facing version of the application with very specific information that's shareable and not shareable. And that all comes directly from the MLSs themselves. We follow your business rules on IDX. So if you guys display 16 fields, 13 fields, 12 fields, 11 fields, whatever it is you display, that's all we display. So 100% of the attribution goes to the listing agent, or I'm sorry, the agent that invited the consumer. So whether you're a buyer's agent, listing agent, whatever, that's what's being displayed like every other website. And only the public remarks show. But back to where I was on this page, if the customer gets invited into a cart, they would receive an email inviting them to that experience. And then when we click into that experience, the consumer can then share information back and forth. So perfect example of this, love it, hit enter, swipe left, want to see, love it. And then, then we can, nope. So when I go back into my carts and I'm in the same page, I hit the refresh button. And then I'm actually seeing all of the real-time feedback that the customer shared with us, their notes, anything else like that. So right there, I can actually see what they liked, what they didn't like. If there's any notes, I can actually see them. I can write private notes for myself if I want to, or I can write shared notes that then my customer would be able to see back inside of their version of the application. So I'm just making sure I'm hitting on all of the requested items. If this is okay, I want to stop real quick and actually switch to my mobile application. So I'm going to click into the web link. If somebody needs to permission my phone, if you could so kindly do so. But any questions while I'm pulling up my mobile application? Okay, so the mobile application comes with the Remine Pro. This is not a separate product. We don't sell this. This is not an add-on. And a couple of things to share is one, we know that if people download it, the usage dramatically increases the times people come to the application, and it's very powerful. We've just had a huge MLS, being Miami Association of Realtors, sunset their other mobile applications, and we are the only mobile application pushed and offered by the MLS. So as you can see, you have the daily screen, you have search just like any other part of the application. If I were to go to the exact same property just for consistency, so I'm showing you the exact same fields, it would have that same exact process where it would start auto-suggesting stuff. And if I scroll down, As you can see, it's suggesting the Florida property because I'm actually sitting in Florida and my phone has a GPS on it. Then I would open a card. It would go to it exactly there. You would see the exact same information that you saw on desktop. The reason I'm showing you mobile with the differences of how this app was built. And again, our iOS and Android are native built, meaning that everything is built for mobile. So what do I mean by that? If I click on start route, it actually launches Google Maps and starts taking you there. I can copy that into a clipboard and text message, Instagram, however I like to communicate. If I scroll down and I see a contact for an agent, if I actually click on phone, it gives me the one-click dial, whether it's the preferred number of the office. If I click email, it'll grab the agent's information, grab the subject property and throw it in the subject line to make life easier. And as I scroll down, it's got just specific functionality built just for our mobile. In addition to that, if I click the top 3 dots on the top right-hand corner, I can start a tour, which has somewhat of a safety tool because it will grab people from my contacts and I can set a timer to let them know if I have not checked in. You can create the CMA just like we did on the desktop in the same 2 clicks. You customize that CMA, and then we have the CMA right then and there. And I really hope you guys didn't hear my little guy in the background. Did you guys hear that?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna remember this demo. Hey buddy, I'm in the middle of a demo. You can't go find mommy. Okay, so
Yeah.
that would knock the cool out of my walk. Give me a second. All right, so I'm back on the main page. This is one of the functionalities that I think are kind of over unappreciated, if you will. Now, real use case, I'm showing 7 properties tomorrow, and let's just say, or 5, that NAR active cart I created. If I share that cart with that customer, I can already see the notes they had from when we were collaborating back and forth from web to desktop. Now we're at the property, and then I can add a note that's only visible to me or a shared note, and they can do the same. So as we all know, photography could be slightly deceiving in real estate. So you could ask them to put notes in real time on the property, and we're not printing out paper. And as you guys all know, with buyers, after the 4th or 5th house, they're kind of Frankensteining the house in their memory. Was that kitchen in that property? Was that pool in that house and whatnot? So this is a very, very powerful way of displaying information, sharing information, and collaborating. One of the other cool things here under more is we got a quick mortgage calculator. So again, putting ourselves in the field scenario, you see 3 houses for the same price. Well, you may want to adjust taxes, homeowners, and HOA dues so they can on the fly real time be having a pretty good calculation of what that mortgage payment does. Let's say their loan officer told them, hey, you're locked in at X rate. They know what their down payment is, but it's these 3 sliders at the bottom of homeowners insurance, HOA dues, and taxes that could completely adjust something that behaves differently one way or the other. So I had a very concise list that I was working through. I'm actually speaking rather quickly. I'm actually ready to move on to add edit unless we had other questions. I just want to make sure that that works for everybody.
Cover the message in when sending a cart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Leo, did you hear David?
If you could restate it, that'd be great.
When we were discussing the other day about being able to send a message within the cart when you have a bunch of listings.
Yep. So that was something you shared. I actually took that back to the team, and I can actually, if you guys were to move forward, I could give you an ETA as part of you guys moving forward as to when that could be in the app. And that's the one I completely agreed with you that makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Sending a message saying like, here's a cart we set up for you.
So like currently in Flex, when you set up a search and they're doing the initial first time, so maybe it's 30 properties, 50 properties, 5, whatever it is, you can send a message like, this is the current criteria. Anything, you can just,
Right.
instead of having to send a separate email, they didn't have that capacity.
Yeah, so this is the visualization. We can do that right here. Like this is, she's asking for this message optional box, which we have on an individual property. But when we hit that share cart, when we go here and we just share a cart, it's just a button, right? We just hit share and we put an email. So visually what it would look like is right under here, we would have a message box. So that was a no-brainer suggestion that will, whether or not you guys move forward as a partner with us, it'll probably make it into the app because that's a wonderful suggestion. So with that being said, let me actually.
Can I ask a question first about the cart?
Absolutely.
When you have the list of things that are in the cart, can you order them as in, like, before we go and see them, this is the order that we're going to be viewing the homes and it stays in that cart once you send it to the clients?
That is a great question. I am not sure so since you asked the question and we're here, I know we can organize the columns at which way the display of information is on these columns, but I don't know. No.
Can't click and drag to move them in the order.
I'm trying to
That way
click and drag because our application is really intuitive like that. So if we do that here, we can actually click and drag stuff very easily. But that so discard changes. Yes, let's discard changes. So this order, I am not able to sort. We'll let you sort it by alphabetical. We can sort it by lot size, but that's about all the sorting we allow that I'm seeing right here. So status. So it looks like we can sort by ascending, descending, alphabetical, not just drag and drop.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so any questions on either Remine Pro, a specific data set, interacting with a consumer, looking up information, prospecting, and or collaboration between client and agent? Oh, that's why I like having a checklist when I'm going through. There is some collaboration stuff I wanted to share. So if you are sharing with customers and they are using it, it gives you pretty rich analytics. So if I were to click into it, I could actually see notes, favorites, shared properties, and saved searches. I did not touch on saved searches. So there's so much information that I like to make sure I have a checklist in front of me so I don't miss anything. Just like we created a search in a cart, you can create saved searches around MLS, around anything else. So you can draw a polygon, do all the same stuff we just did, statuses, all that fun stuff. And you can just hit save search. So just like you would in any other application, you would type it in, my saved search, you would add yourself as a copy if you'd like. And if you want to edit any of those saved searches, you could do so. So you could adjust the frequency, ASAP, daily, weekly, never. And then obviously per the comment of adding a comment box, I would do it with saved searches as well, but it would be as soon as possible, daily, weekly, and never on the updates as well. So any quick questions so far in addition to that? If not, I'm going to move on to add edit.
So with saved searches, or is there another function that if new listings hit the market, it's going to auto send if it meets the criteria of that client?
Yeah, you could absolutely do that under saved searches. And it is unlimited, which there's sometimes we say stuff like that and some agent tests us. There was an agent in the Northeast who had at one point 77,000 saved searches. I don't know what his inbox would look like, but somebody tried to prove what the limits of our system are. So that still functioned at 77,000 saved searches. I don't know what he was doing with them. So one of the things that's really neat about Remine is that it's modular. So right now I'm inside of Bright MLS. I'm a dues pay member, and that's why I display this one. And I'm giving you a little bit of context so you understand some of the flexibility of the technology. Bright MLS is comprised of, I think, 42 different distinct associations, 100,000 members across 4 states. I belong to the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors. That's the one I grew up in. I was very involved in the board. That association purchased one of our modules, being Docs Plus, which we're not discussing today, but I just wanted to show you an example of how different modules would appear on your application. So even though it's one MLS, only 15,000 agents have this button on their screen. Inside of FMLS, which I understand some or all of you may have credentials to, you would see the multiple modules, right? So the one we're discussing next is add edit. So if you're going to add a listing to the MLS, you would do it through the add edit module. You can do it directly from a piece of public record information. So if we just zoom in into Atlanta, and as you may have tried, we try not to add any MLS listings then to that system to complicate anything, since I am in a production environment here. But if I were to grab a property and open it, you would see that their property card has additional buttons that the Bright MLS one. So if you saw this button does not exist in the Bright system, it exists in the Atlanta system. So if I were to click here, if there was a previous listing inside of that brokerage, I would have access to it. That again is business rules set by your board, or you could use the tax record, select that, and then it would open up the add edit tool. And again, I only have production credentials for a demo environment, so it won't let me go very far there because it would ask me for actual sign in, login into FMLS. Again, if you guys had a neighboring MLS that you would want to populate into a separate database, you could have multiple inputs. So this goes into a CoreLogic database, and this goes into a Paragon database, all from our add edit. Let's say there's 90 required fields here and 110 required fields here. Say 80 of them are duplicate ones according to Rezo. So we'd have 10 carryover from this one and 30 carryover from this one. So agents would complete a total of 120 fields and have 2 complete inputs into an MLS database. Now, let me actually just take you into a demo environment to show you all the different fields. At the MLS level, the staff would have the totality of the login. So you would see all of the listings of the MLS. A broker would have only their listings, a team would have their team, an agent would only have theirs. But if you were to click into a property and it was already built, this is the quick edit. So you can see photos, adjust list price, status, remarks, and integration. So that's your really shortcut, if you will. But there's a couple things to point out as I'm going through this demo. So first of all, you'll see it's very straightforward, modern design and layout, easy on the eye, and with the very simple navigation on the left-hand side. So we would build these boxes completely to your business rules. So if you guys are allowed to do residential, which that's what MLSs are primarily focused on, that's easy. Residential leases, residential income. Some MLSs allow manufactured homes, some don't. Land, commercial, and again, land is almost always included, but commercial sometimes is a separate system altogether. Some MLSs allow business opportunities and or farmland. So you would select the proper property, and you see I got a green light. So I mean, when I was over here, obviously I got a whole bunch of red lights because I'm not actually inputting a listing into that system. But one of the really neat things is we allow you to adjust the Centroid and even allow you to adjust the Google Street View, which is pretty neat. So when that agent would be able to look on that listing created, they would be able to see that. You would see a listing agent, a co-listing agent, all that fun information. And again, we are at our core a public record company. So we would be auto-populating as much of this as we could for you all. The list price, as we move forward, compensation, all of the stuff that you're just seeing, but you see this starts going green. And again, in the live system, if you aren't using the information correctly, and as you can see, it's labeling what MLS is required and what fields. But in this example, all your blank ones are red, so you can't move on and move forward. But as I'm showing you in a demo environment, I'm just kind of cruising through it because it's designed to allow me to show you that stuff. In this functionality, we scan similar subject properties to see if there's any language that is common amongst other closed transactions of a similar property and surfacing that for the agent. The photo functionality is a crowd pleaser for agents. A couple reasons. There is no limit to size of photos. So you could do 4K resolution and they could be 10 megs each. There is also no limit, technically speaking. As a board and a leadership group, you could cap that at 200, 100, 50, whatever you guys would choose to. But from a technological standpoint, you don't cap it. So if there is a time where you'd be overlapping our technology into another database, so for example, Paragon, Repatoni, Matrix Flex, you could use our input into one of their databases. They could shrink down the image, which happens when it hits the Paragon or the Matrix database that we're familiar with. But we still have a copy in the 4K resolution for you all. A couple of, again, crowd pleasers here is you could do a quick adjustment. This is not Adobe Photoshop, but it could be edited on the fly. You can also move the images as necessary. So kind of like that question about the carts. I don't do it on the property addresses, but I do allow you to do it here on the photos. And then invite a photographer to the instance is a very well-received feature and functionality. So you're not allowing the photographer to modify the listing in any way. All you're allowing them to do is upload the photos and tag them. Why that's really neat is because as photography's gotten better and the cameras are fancier, you're receiving larger and larger PDF files, or I'm sorry, downloadable files like a zip file or a Dropbox file or a link of some sort. You have to download these large files, then re-upload them into your MLS. And we're just cutting out some of the steps there. We allow you to upload video in the same capacity and format. We allow you to add virtual tours, Matterports, whatever it may be. All the relevant attached documents, all the structure stuff that may be necessary. And again, we'll try to auto-populate as much as possible. And as I'm moving through it, there's just little things that from being a practitioner were very helpful in our opinion. So like if you put a bedroom or a basement, you can drag in if you put it on the wrong floor. As you continue here, a lot of information, all that fun stuff. And as I keep moving here, there's some integration points. So again, you may or may not like them anymore, but we still integrate with them because they were pretty big and overlap with our customers. And if we do become partners and you meet a phenomenal vendor who's on fire and makes your life easier, faster, better, we want to meet them. We want to make sure we have all of the correct partners on our roadmap to be integrating with to make your life easier. Now, upon completion of an entry, again, you set the business rules. If you want to the done and yep.
Sorry, I just want to cut in. When we're setting this up, assuming we partnered with you, I'm assuming we can customize the order of the fields that we input a listing at, and also customize which fields are required to input before it lets you continue on inputting.
100%. Ad edit is a very, very customized behavior. It is exactly your business rules, who, what, when, and where, who's on first. This is 100% a custom build to your business rules.
And then you were talking about these partners or other vendors that we might want to incorporate into the MLS. Was there a opportunity to invite them like you'd invite a photographer?
That's a great question. Give me an example to see if I may or may not already have that on my roadmap.
I don't know. I'm just like, how about a floor plan provider, like something you can like scan a floor plan in and bring it into the MLS if there was one of those that we wanted to incorporate?
So that I asked you that question in a very specific manner because I'm actually going to tell you the reason I'm most excited about our ad edit, and it may or may not be handled in this second part. So everything I just showed you is a UI interpretation, right? The visual user experience of it. Now, one of the reasons I think some of our customers are very excited about our ad edit is that we know of the only ad edit that actually provides an API key as well. So tech forward brokers in Texas and in Atlanta have already started building to this API. So following the business rules, like you said, specifically for your MLS, every one of these fields and rules is a API endpoint on our API key. And so as long as it's approved by your organization, a tech forward broker, whether independent or national, can actually push an entire listing into our database, your backend database of choice through our ad edit, and never actually log in to either Remine or Matrix, Paragon, Flex, Repatoni, right? So depending on that vendor relationship, we might, like, if you have that field requirement, there's an attachment doc for a floor plan, and that's something you guys do. I think the vendor could write directly to our API. So super exciting, in our opinion, for that. Like there's some strong independents in Texas that list a couple thousand homes a year for new construction, and they're the ones that were kind of really helping drive that for some of our customers. There's a lot of large publicly traded companies who spend quite a bit on technology, but in our experience, the ones that are doing the most innovative stuff are actually the local independents who, you know, are dominant in their local markets and are really interacting with us on some of those capabilities in the future.
Thank you.
Hey, as long as we're on the topic of integration, does Remine work well with Zapier?
Zapier is a yes, an integrator. We've had them on a roadmap. We've talked to them. We absolutely are planning on doing an integration with them because they're the integrator of integrators. That would be something like here where we would integrate contacts and save searches. So there's a couple of things that we've had on our roadmap with them, but yeah, they're on our roadmap. We're familiar with them, and the answer is yes. But it's not live. I can't demonstrate anything like that, but we've definitely had that interest. Oh, and on integration points and APIs. So since we're on the additive conversation, as we've rolled this out in some large major markets, we have already had Realogy reach out, KW and Remax, and again, it's been inbound requests from brokers in that market, but Realogy is already built. Where in Atlanta, Georgia, if you're part of the Realogy brands, you can, and you input a listing, there's a button where you can push it directly into the backend system for one of the Realogy brands. And again, we're happy because it's an open API to partner, explain, send docs. There's absolutely no preferences for independents or large brokerages, but whomever wants to work with us on that, we want to make life simple. So what does that mean specifically is if an agent, it puts a listing into FMLS and they're part of their Realogy family, they can actually hit one button and it gets into the, you know, Coldwell Banker, ERA, Better Homes and Garden backend.
Thank you.
And I'm going to turn it off because I can't see your faces, but I'm more than glad to answer any questions, go over any other specific part of the application. I just wanted to be concise and respectful of your guys' time and make sure I demonstrated everything on my list.
Of the admin capabilities, questions you have for admin?
Okay, I'll ask another one. When you have a saved search or even just have started a search, are you able to download that search as a CSV spreadsheet?
The save criteria?
Yeah, if you've done a search and maybe, you know, 15 or 30 or however many properties are on the screen, is there any way to download that data directly to a CSV?
Yep. So if you did a save search and then there's like 30 results, you would just, you know, again, select them, put them in a cart, labeling something, and then once they're in carts, you know, and they're labeled, you would just select, hit export, and you're done.
Okay. And do we have a list at this point of what all the data can syndicate to? As far as, you know, obviously Zillow, Trulia, and the majors, but do you have a list of some of the ones that are less known?
Just so I always like to make sure I'm answering the question asked. So right now, the product you would be having would be Remine Pro. Remine Pro is basically a read-only software of your MLS database coupled and displayed with our public record information. So we don't, like, that application doesn't push out at all.
Okay.
If you buy our ad edit, we input into a database. We do have an API solution where you guys could permission where information goes, whether, you know, that is a Val feed, an IDX feed, or a syndication feed. But we always like to say we're just the plumbing. Where you plug it in and where the data goes is 100% up to you all.
Okay, thank you.
Is List Hub? I feel like we use List Hub for the syndication. Does that sound familiar, Leo?
Yeah, List Hub would be a syndicator. And again, so like if we were building a house or stacking something, right? You know, there is a database And in that database, there's the input into the database, which would be ad edit, right? So, and again, I keep using all of them to be respectful of it. Who is your primary front end system right now?
Flex.
Okay, so right now you have a Flex database and the input is into Flex. If you were to bring this on side by side with Flex tomorrow, we just snap our fingers and integrate it tomorrow, we sit side by Flex in multiple markets. We would be reading Flex's information every 60 seconds and it would be mirror database behavior. The information that goes out of the Flex database is 100% controlled by you guys through an API. That goes to List Hub, that could go to brokers, the Val feeds, the same feed we're pulling is from Flex. That is completely controlled by you all at the Flex level. We you know, the Remine UI allows you to share an instance of a property, send a link, share a cart, but any of that kind of bulk data distribution at this point would not happen from us unless you wanted it to. And then we have an API manager layer that we could include there. But, you know, again, that really, and I just want to make sure I'm, you know, if you guys get something, you're getting everything you're expecting. So none of the technology I showed you would even put us in that realm of sharing data in bulk through APIs. It's just purely input through the ad edit.
So if you were to run side by side with Flex, you'd be running off of Flex's API.
For the
Therefore, it's feeding to you guys the information from Flex that we control.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do it. If you just got Remine Pro and you could turn it on tomorrow for sake of argument, and you had 18 months left on your Flex contract, we would be replicating the information from Flex. The input would be from Flex, would stay in Flex. It is very common for us to turn on our system side by side with, you know, Matrix, Flex, Paragon, whatever, and a public record system. So typically what we see happen is they'll sunset a CRS or a Realist or an IMAP, which are the public record providers, and then we become that only public record providers. And we're in various conversations with MLSs of small and large scale who have expressed to us and their members that over time, they will probably turn off their Flex Paragon Matrix instance. But you don't have to pull the Band-Aid and do it day one. You could also have Remine and ad edit. And again, the ad edit populate into the Flex database. So currently we're not doing that into a Flex database. We can, but currently we are doing it into a CoreLogic database, a Paragon database, and proprietary databases. So again, in FMLS, the unique one is FMLS has 85% market share overlap with Georgia MLS. So agents only need to input that database one time. In Michigan, with Karen Cage, she's merged a lot of smaller MLSs around her. She has her own proprietary database, and what she's done is she's turned off all the ad edits of all the systems. So her primary market is a Matrix market. She's got some smaller Paragon markets and Rapatoni markets where she's turned off the ad edit functionality. So there's only one ad edit. It goes into her backend database. So none of us are the backend database for her. Not CoreLogic, not Flex, not Paragon, nobody. We are read only. All of us are to her wholly owned database, and our ad edit feeds into that. And then obviously data distribution comes out as well. So I know that gets really technical and in the weeds, but I just want to make sure you guys are aware of all the possible different forms of configuring a database and or backend system.
So this isn't a standalone MLS. We would have to pair it with something else.
No.
No.
Well, if you do the ad edit, then you are alone, or you're on your own. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's standalone. We're just kind of talking about potentially running them side by side.
I love that idea.
So
We voted.
yeah. Leo, it's probably not a surprise, but we have discussed the option of running it side by side with Flex, or at least maybe for the first year. One of the main reasons we had the thought come up was because, and please expand on this, there's not a lot of market stats or production capabilities within the system currently. Can you?
Yeah, so
yeah. Means
Full
and
trans-
the roadmap?
Yep, full transparency of kind of the evolution. As I said, when we started building this, if you've interacted with my co-founder, Jonathan, he and I were just two competing brokers in our own local market. We had never seen Matrix. I mean, we'd only grew up on Matrix. We'd never seen Realist, Paragon, Flex. We'd never actually seen another system. We never knew we were like completely transparently. I didn't know the difference between MRIS and Matrix, which was my MLS and the actual. I'm not the only realtor who's probably called into an MLS and not known the difference between NAR and Flex. We were just trying to build better prospecting tools. We built prospecting tools that were adopted by MLSs. And as we scaled and got bigger and bigger, we started getting a lot of inbound requests from our customers said, hey, if you do this, we will buy more product from you. If you do that, we will buy more product from you. And then very quickly that conversation will, hey, if you get these three things, we'll actually turn off the other one, right? So from our first launch, we were always side by side. We didn't start off by saying, hey, we're going to turn it all off. And then as we've grown, and one of the things that our customers will tell you is that our uptime is phenomenal. We have like 99.2% uptime with very, very little downtime. And yes, we have everything on a roadmap exactly check off the box that would turn off another system. We did not start by saying, hey, we're going to turn off Matrix in any market. That was not part of our roadmap. As we grew as a business and we grew with our adoption, and everybody said, hey, if you build that, we will go there. That's exactly where those missing pieces, if you will, those missing teeth to be able to turn off a complete system. And they're very well mapped out, drawn out, and in production right now.
Can you give us a small list of exactly what those might be from where you were using Matrix to, you know, what Remine is building to have all those functions that Matrix has?
Yeah, so I mean, I could do that post call and actually send you a detailed list. So like, for example, there's just the functionality reporting for either like stats on the entire market to overall production from realtors. Like I can't say, show me the top 100 realtors based on production last month. There is, and again, I don't want to not answer the question, but I could find a detailed list because I know it's somewhere in our production roadmap of what we have identified as those missing pieces. And maybe that will help you kind of make your decision. It's like, do we run them side by side for a year, 18 months, as long as these are delivered? And it could also be part of the contract. Like, hey, if you guys deliver on this, then we can do, if A happens, then B happens type scenario.
Currently, to run monthly stats on home sales, we'd have to do the two side by side.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, that's not what you want to hear, but I want to be transparent and very truthful about what our app can and can't do.
Thank you.
So we heard that specific function of the market stats is hopefully coming Q2 next year.
Yeah, I would want to confirm that. That sounds about right, but it's specific, you know, we have quite a bit on our roadmap. We try not to make it too long. I've heard that other clients or vendors like to have a 3-year roadmap. We try to keep it to 6 months, deliver on that, move on to the next 6 months. But I would absolutely be able to validate a timeline prior to.
And some of us know this, but how long is your normal contract you'd expect with a association?
Yeah, I would say our average is 3 years. I've done a 1 year and I've done a 5 year. So it really depends, and everything in between, right? 2 and 4. 3 is my ideal kind of, it's not too long, it's not too short. So we know we're committed to each other. The ones that were 5 year were a client request, and the ones that were 1 year were a client request. So we've done literally 1 through 5 across the board, but I would say our average and most frequent one is 3 years.
How long do we run side by side?
That's up to us.
I would,
A year to 18 months at max.
Okay.
Well, as long as they reach the milestones for the things we need.
The whole point is to be able to write into the contract exactly what we need from them over the course of however many months. Once we hit that timeline, that's when we decide drop Flex, go with Remine Pro wholly, or you know, whatever ends up happening at that point. That would be the ultimate goal though.
Leo, do you have any like stats on previous MLSs that have run them concurrently, like as far as adoption rate? It seems like
Absolutely.
every time we do 2 of them, or of anything, people are really hesitant to try the new one because they want to feel comfortable in the old one.
100%. I have all kinds of stats and we have it segmented by size. So our lowest adopted markets have been like 7%. Our highest adopted markets have been close to 70%. So I'll walk you through some of the big differences. One is the training and communication from the MLSs. That really is, we've seen as the biggest one. And then the secondary one is where it kind of sits in your ecosystem. So there's some MLSs that we partner with that have north of 100 MLS products that are included inside of their dashboard. And that's just a lot of choice. And I always equate that to the Cheesecake Factory menu. I can never make a decision there versus where, you go to some restaurants and there's two proteins and a pasta, and that's about it. So there's other markets where we are the only public record of system whatsoever. So it's like us and Matrix. And we have extremely high adoption there, right? There's other markets where we're the only mobile application whatsoever. So we are here to provide as much training as possible, whether that's webinar, content on YouTube, pre-written and copy and all that stuff. But where we see the adoption rise and fall has nothing to do with size, average age, business model, or anything other than how well or how not well we are presented and shown to the members. And with that said, we're willing to do the work, but we have MLSs that say you're not allowed to contact our members ever under any circumstance. We are somewhat limited by the amount of adoption we can help drive. We have playbooks that we've seen work and get to very, very high adoption, but we need somebody who truly partners with us and kind of allows us to help in that process.
I have one more question about that. The eVocalize that you said is coming up.
That was my question too.
So you drew a polygon on the map and then used that as your farming system. So then what does the eVocalize do? Is it identifying people in that and determining that as like your social media audience? Or is it like generating ads to whatever audience you choose based on that area? Like these are features that are available in this.
Yeah, no, in that follow-up email that I'll get you with a roadmap, I'll actually get you exactly what we're doing in Vocalize. So we get exactly what it is. I understand it to be geo-targeting. So instead of sending mailers, you would be finding lookalike profiles. Because again, especially with social, you have to be very careful how you create those ads, as well as retargeting. So I will find out exactly the documentation for that launch and send it over to your leadership.
Thanks. I don't even know if I spelled it right in my notes.
I feel like in one of our demos with Jonathan a number of months ago, he showed some type of Twitter or other social media kind of use within the MLS, like maybe you could directly post a listing to Twitter or something.
So so there's a couple places Twitter will show up in the application as it stands today. Let me actually share my screen. So if a customer, if a user has a social media profile that appears in their contacts, so let me just grab any parcel. So let me just grab this random property and I open it. So remember I said in their contacts, associated people. So sometimes, so this one we don't have any information on, but if we have contact information, it could be an email, it could be a phone number, and it could be a social media profile. So I'm clicking around on random profiles. Let's just see if any of them have one. Sometimes right here, it'll have a little Twitter bird and a Twitter handle or a Gmail or a Yahoo. That would appear there. The other place you'll see Twitter inside of the application is in the cards. You can actually drive a Twitter feed in your cards. And all you're doing is basically adding feeds. So you can type the MLS ID, the Twitter handles you want to be displayed in your feed. So unless he showed you something you vocalize, which again, I want to double check because he was the one negotiating that contract. Sometimes it's him, sometimes it's me. I'm not too familiar with the details for a vocalize, so I want to double check that. And that's why I said, let me follow up on an email. But just so I'm clear, I want to make sure I'm walking away with my to-do. So you guys want a specific itemized roadmap of when and what. So you guys can plan accordingly. And then you want the details on a vocalized. Were there any more information pieces I need to get back to you guys so you guys can make a timely decision?
Conversation.
No, 'cause they answered everything that day.
Linda?
Quick question, as far as the roadmap goes, adding all of these features, does that impact costs or are those considered to be part of the package?
No, that's a great question, and I'll actually add a little bit to it. So one of the things we've done, I think, very well is we don't have the very variable pricing. What you get is exactly what you get. But one of the things that does make us different, which I think has worked to our advantage, is your instance, outside of localizing and mapping data that's specific to your market, will look exactly like you saw me jump from FMLS to Bright, and the only difference was that bubble, that functionality. Couple reasons why that's very good. It allows us to move much faster. So other systems basically have 200-300 different branches of code based on their customer who wanted a highly customized stuff, which makes it longer to add stuff to the roadmap. Two, when someone gives you a really good idea, like that message in the cart bubble, that I immediately said, yeah, that's cool, I'm going to add to the roadmap. When I pushed into the code, everyone gets it. Texas gets it, Florida gets it, you get it, DC gets it. A really interesting side benefit that's come from that is because our system looks and behaves the exact same way throughout the country. Let's say you're multi-state brokers who operate in multiple jurisdictions across state lines. Love it, because if they have a trainer who creates content and teaches on a certain application, they can learn Remine one time, and they're not having to learn a different system for a different market. So real quick, while here in the background, I'm looking for YouTube because I actually want to show you some of the content we have and produce. But more importantly, here, where's my share button? YouTube. So I just typed in Remine into YouTube, and we have a channel with 40 some. But you will also see that one, like the most viewed videos, this is by an agent out of Dallas, creates his own videos. This is Real Estate Marketing Ninjas. These are Remine ones, but then there's Miami Association of Realtors, Austin Board of Realtors. The really cool thing is if you guys do become a partner, the content created by another association and or brand and or realtor is leverageable and usable, right? So like right now, I know for a fact that the Tom Ferry event's going on because I keep getting text messages from agents who are my friends who are like, hey, I'm in a breakout session about prospecting, and someone on stage just shared how they use Remine. And the really cool thing is whatever they're sharing, I know works in your market. So the data sets we integrate and any button that we add does work nationwide, which makes that experience really translatable and really easy for agents to mastermind and leverage each other's best practices.
So Leo, I have a question regarding the training for agents. How long is the training do you offer, and is that in person or via Zoom? Yeah,
so since the pandemic, it's been virtual. Before the pandemic, we used to put it into the contract. So obviously that the amount of frequency we physically show up can be negotiated into the contract, but the virtual one is basically unlimited. So the way we work is every MLS has an account manager who can do one of two things. We can either train the trainer. So again, our smallest customer is under 1,000 people. Our largest customers are 100,000 people. We have MLSs that absolutely will never let us interact with their customers. Like Miami has 18 trainers on staff, and they actually know the product really, really well. And when we first launched the product, I felt like I personally met with their team like once a week, and they create content that you see rank on YouTube. We have other folks that don't have that size staff, and we're completely okay with all iterations of it, where it's not as much about training the trainer, but it's webinars specifically around the schedule of the association. We've had MLSs who said, hey, do them specifically for some of these larger independents who have 30% market share, and that will, if the email invite comes from the strong independent in the market, it'll get a lot more attendance. we're open to whatever works in your market. So we're really relying on your playbook of what works, and we're more than glad to share our playbook of what's worked in other markets.
It's all in that email that they sent yesterday. I wasn't reading that stuff. Yeah, it kind of outlines
Okay.
the
Thank you.
train to trainer video content, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff in there.
How about,
Yeah.
like, support, if someone gets stuck or we have a glitch in the system?
Yep. I was about to go there. So first of all, this button is live in the application at all times. We have announcements, self-guided tours. You can attend a webinar. You can visit our help center. So we built a support center that mirrors kind of that smart checkbox technology. It's all been optimized for smart search, but you also have real-time chat. You can create a ticket if you have an issue that you want to have addressed, or you can actually start real chat right now. So this is staffed 7 days a week, Monday through Friday. I think it's 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then Saturday and Sunday I think it's 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. But it's real-time chat with a human being, not a chat box. If the MLS staff wants to reach out to their account manager, you have all of our office lines, cell phones, emails, text. We can do that. We do not have a direct phone line to the consumer. If they open up a ticket because there's an issue, we need to call them to troubleshoot it, we will. But we've learned, that first level phone call coming to the association is typically handled by the association. If there is a ticket open, we will absolutely respond to like, I was CC'd on an email yesterday where someone downloaded the app and it wasn't working. It turned out that they belong to multiple MLSs and they put in the wrong MLS ID, and they were trying to, in this example, look for Northern Association or Arizona Association of Realtors data, and they were seeing the other data and said, well, you downloaded and connected it to the wrong app, so we had to go in and adjust that. So we actually picked up the phone and called them back and explained what the user error was.
Your hours are 10 o'clock Miami time.
Say that again.
You're 10 o'clock Eastern.
It's two.
I'm just wondering, like, so.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Yes.
It would be 10 o'clock Eastern, so that could be 1 o'clock ours, the earliest we could get in touch with somebody.
Yes, but you could get in touch pretty late. No, the other way around, right?
Or the other way around, right? So
Yeah.
then the afternoon, we would be, the
Till
latest
6
would
or
be.
5.
Yeah.
You'd be 5.
Yeah.
5. You'd be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Real quick to clarify, the app from the agent side, I assume it has most of the capabilities as if you run a desktop, but can you like do the full add edit functions of a listing from the
You
app?
actually can. You actually can. So
There
clarification there. The mobile app for the function is built on iOS. I'm opening up my mobile app. I'm pretty sure there's an add edit button in here. Yes, but I do know for a fact that yes, you can do almost the entire listing. I don't know if you can submit it from online, but Jonathan says it in the demo. You can do a full add edit into a listing from your mobile, even though we don't suggest hitting submit. You might want to check on your desktop, but from a technology standpoint, you can do the whole thing online on mobile.
So we have it set up that we can do get a mass, like, so that Judy in the office doesn't get like 50 calls if there's something that's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, you can subscribe to, go on the website and subscribe, and then whenever there's a problem with Flex, it'll notify you and it'll let everybody know, and then it'll let everybody know when it's fixed. So do they have that system? That's a question. So we have with the Flex system, like, if there's, let's say that it's down, for instance. So poor Judy could get like 50 calls from 50 different agents saying that the system is down, for instance, but they have it where you can go in and you can subscribe. And so if the system is down, they automatically notify all the members, hey, the system is down. And then they let you know as soon as the system's back up, so you don't have 50 people calling. Do you have something like that?
That's a good question. We were down, I think, 2 hours last year. So that is one of the things that we're most proud is our uptime. We haven't had to build a system around it because we've just been obsessed with never being down. I hope to never have to cross that bridge, but we don't have that built in because I would encourage you to call our current customers. That's like we would put that in writing. Like our downtime is almost nothing. So we haven't, so direct answer, no, we have not built a system around it, but we're not down very long ever.
Okay, thanks.
I do, that brings up, so one of the things that we kind of self-police as much as possible, our MLS rules and regulations, and currently on our MLS system, there's a place where you can anonymously like report an error in a listing. Is there any of that functionality on here where you could anonymously alert the agent, hey, you're missing the photo, or you have 5 million instead of 500,000, or
Yes, no, I'm very familiar with that button in other applications. You could submit it through a submitted ticket because am I not sharing my screen? No, hold on one second. Sorry about that. Yeah, so if you're on a property or on the application, you can open up that little question mark. You could submit a ticket. It allows for send feedback, and then it would actually create a ticket for you. But we're not, you would just be creating a generic one. If that is a important requirement, I would venture to bet that is not one of the bubbles on our roadmap where I said, hey, I know exactly what we need in order to have a system be comfortable turning it off. But again, as part of the discussion, if there's specific features and functionalities that you would need to have in the app to feel comfortable turning it off, I would want that spelled out in black and white so we're both on the same page as to your expectations and the timeline that we're committed to hit that expectation. So direct answer is no, we don't have that anonymous flagging complaint system on a listing, but I'm very familiar with it and we could add that if need be.
Does the system allow staff to send out a broadcast email to all the agents?
So great question. So remember, Remine Pro is reading off your AMS. So we are using whatever SSO and or AMS roster table. So that functionality is built into whatever you currently use, whether that's Ramco or MMSI or so we have not built that. We're not planning on building that because so our SSO dashboard, which is a separate product, has all that workflow built into it. But I mean, SSO is different than a front end system for us.
Sorry, I'm still confused. Like this doesn't replace the Flex. It would
Eventually,
replace
that's the goal.
MLS, But we would have to sign up for that additional SSO.
No, that, which we would want to have for the pricing anyways, so that you can have the listings. The whole purpose of running them side by side is to give them the opportunity to complete everything that we outline in the contract, in essence, that we want, like comps, for instance, or the messaging or whatever it is, by that timeline. The goal is to switch over completely.
But then like what you're talking about is already sort of integrated in the
Yes.
back end of Flex, right? So we would be missing that component, like the emailing members, and so there's still sort of a big
Right.
chunk not there.
Because that's important.
So an easy solve for that, if we are moving towards a complete replacement system, we could bundle the SSO, and our SSO, which again, I want to be respectful of time. I can jump in and show you that does that piece and 90 things that I'm sure the Flex standalone system does. That really replaces, if you've ever seen a full demo of Clarity or MMSI, right? So it is your permissioning, it is your authentication, it is simple authentication versus two-factor form authentication. It is monitoring of misbehavior with login, shared credentials. People are sharing credentials and downloading data in the Philippines. We catch that. We would allow brokers to customize a login instance. So a KW broker could make it red and then have command. An EXP broker could make it their color scheme, and SkySlope could be their backend. So you would have the primary providers of technology for SSO for the MLS, and then secondarily by the brokers, where the brokers are controlling not only SSO access to company provided technology, but as well as messaging, color scheme, permissioning, and all that stuff. So again, we built our products to be modular because in a lot of markets, you know, it could be a Clarity SSO, which is a matrix product, a Paragon front end system, and then us side by side being an alternative front end system, and as well as public record. So you have a CoreLogic product, a Remine product, and a Black Knight product. We've broken it up where it can be modular and fit in wherever you want, but it 100% can be the full stack. If you're turning everything else off, our suggestion is Pro, Add Edit, and then SSO. So again, I want to be as transparent as possible. So the list of products I was told to show were Pro and Add Edit, but our SSO does all of that and a lot more. So it is authentication, roster management, communication at the MLS level, to the membership, segmentation of user types and payment types, to broker communication. So me, independent Leo Pareja, realtors could then send out a message that's only to my members inside of that login. Whenever they log in, you could do a pop-up that you have to close, all that fun stuff.
And then is that SSO add-on a significant cost?
Again, depending on what the goals are, you know, our goal, we want a full system, as many full systems installed. So, you know, if you're getting 2 products, I would make it worth your while.
Do you think that would replace the Rapatoni backend?
So again, I heard the question. Rapatoni backend Magic is member management. That there's only 2 of them. There's Ramco and there's Magic. We did not build that. SSO is a competitor to Clarity and MMSI's SSO. That is single sign-on solution, which is permissioning and making sure that the communication is there. So some of these feel like they should all be all-encompassing, but one thing I learned once I got into the technology side, you know, it's better to build something that works really well and instead of something that does it all. And some of those products are very, very robust. Like I know the Ramco and the Magic backend have quite a bit that nothing close comes to it in SSO. That is member management. That's mostly around billing and member types and where you collect your money and all kinds of that stuff.
What was that CoreLogic error thing that we were talking about adding?
Here it did.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Listing data checker. So we have a backend. I don't even know what we call it. An add-on called a listing data checker that will go through its scrub for errors in listings automatically and then send out notifications as needed. Is that something?
Yeah, so our system is mostly predicated on following your business rules up front. So you get the flag before you enter the listing. So we don't have a separate product we sell. Ours is mapped to your business rules. So when they enter the listing, we don't let them enter the listing if it's breaking your rules.
So you feel the way that yours is set up that it eliminates the need for a data checker?
Yeah, so that's a very pointed question. I would want to double check how Jonathan answers it because it was his baby, but I will put that'll be my 4th. That is right under the vocalized question.
And those rules would include if we had to have a document that needed to be uploaded before the listing could go active.
Correct. Yes, that's exactly it. So someone asked the pointed question, when you're doing ad edit, you know, is it customized? That is the most customized thing we do.
Is that almost where data check stuff is people entering it, or is it after they make changes to a listing?
I think it's after.
After they make changes to a listing, they go.
That's why
Put it on the front end is a better idea.
So,
But some of that stuff you can't catch on the front end.
Right, you can't.
Like updating a status too late or.
That type of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't eliminate it, I don't think.
Yeah, and part of how I want to answer that question is, I mean, I'll call Jeremy Crawford, one of our customers that uses ad edit, and I honestly don't know if they use it or don't use it. So again, I want to give you as much real in the wild information versus my assumption.
Yeah, we definitely need that ability of flagging a listing error.
Yeah, that's.
Wish we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no stuff.
It is nice on the front end too, though, because there's a lot of people that rush, you know. get things in.
But I mean, like, just I'm sort of thinking the most common examples, and it seems like stuff that wouldn't get flagged, like you have this in as a single family, but it's a manufactured house, or, you know, I don't know of any way to police that.
Like
On the front
saying
end,
for
without knowing,
service
like,
when it's not.
right, or like, hey, this is a townhouse, you click the wrong button,
Or it closed and it's
you know,
still.
right,
still
or you
running and
have the
closed it
price
out.
of 525,000 and it's supposed to be like 5 million, you know, vice versa. whatever you see that, but,
How about from like a brokerage side of things? Is there something that you have questions about?
No questions from me. No, it's it all looks pretty straightforward.
Also, they answer with data ticket with the question.
Do you know how the average response time when creating a ticket?
I can find out the specific one. Most of it's the same day. I'm within a couple hours, or I would say at most 24 hours, but I could find out our average turnaround time because we track it all.
Okay.
So I will go through my list if that's okay with you guys. Hold on.
And at some point, Leo, I'm hoping that maybe, I don't know, you or Jonathan can just meet with staff so we can see how the system works from a staff standpoint, like adding an agent or adding an office and changing and that type of thing.
So that's a great question. All of the instances we have, that's pulling from Rapid. In your example, we pull that directly from Rapatoni. We would not be doing that in our system. We read off Ramco, Rapatoni, MMSI, whomever is your member management system.
So what if Rapatoni is down one day, so we can't physically go into Remine and add a listing without going through Rapatoni?
Is Rapatoni down a lot? I live in a world where that's not acceptable. I sign contracts. I'm not allowed to do that.
You know, I just need to be able, because right now I mean, if something's wrong with one system, we can go directly into Flex MLS and add a listing or change an agent or do whatever. But if
Yeah, I don't see how it would stop it at all. In yours, because we have the roster already in the database, we would input a listing. Yeah, no, I want to get you specific. I kind of caught me off guard with that because our expectations, our system's not down, but I think when you log into our ad edit, the roster table's already in there unless you deleted somebody out of it and we read that out of Magic. But I think it doesn't affect us at all. But the
Talking about specifically adding a new.
add a
agent
new
and-
agent, or if we had a
Not a
new
listing.
office
Yeah.
or that type of thing. I know we have to go through Rapatoni AMS to do it, but like I said, what if it's down? I can't give you stats on how often it's down. But in case it is, I want to be able to go directly into Remine and be able to add an agent or add a new office or change an agent.
So I mean, my understanding is we're reading an API off of your AMS because again, AMS is a separate product for that same reason. Right? If someone is not paying their dues, you don't want them to have access to us, right? So we have to ping that database. And again, we have some MLSs that are very small. That literally sends us an Excel file on the first of every month, and that's who's allowed to log in that month. Most other ones, it's real-time API into Magic, MMSI, whomever, Ramco. If it's down, I'm like, again, I'm stuttering because I'm thinking, I want to say that we're reading the last pull and that's who's authorized. Because if it's down, it would have still had that last cache in an API. So I think it's a technical answer. I've never heard of someone not being able to get in because the AMS was down. So I think the answer is as long as they were already in the system before the AMS was down, it would pick it up and then it's pulled, right? Because I'm assuming it's down maybe a small amount of time. I'm just making.
I think there's some confusion. So Judy's wanting to be able to add, so say a brokerage opens up and she needs to add them into the system, or an agent changes brokerage or whatever. She's referring to that side of it.
Yeah, so we don't have a dashboard for that. We are pulling directly from your AMS.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay,
you just answered it.
there
Thank
we
you.
go.
So you're just gonna add it.
Sorry if I wasn't understanding the question. I was trying to make sure I was answering, but I was getting.
No, it's okay, thank
There's a
you.
reel, isn't there? Like a reel that it'll keep going from? Like you'll just add it and it won't maybe go live right there in that moment, but when it catches back up, it'll have it in it.
Yes, they'll have access.
It just won't be real time.
Okay.
That's the way I see it.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just want to say your kid is awesome. Don't even worry about it. We've all been there.
I've seen that skit on like memes and CNN, but now I got with my boy.
Well, thank you so much, Leo.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.